Instagram, I'm live with Augusto Vega of Survival Apnea. We're going to wait for him to join this conversation. We're also on YouTube going live. So, Augusto, if you ask to join my YouTube live, and I can also invite you, I believe. There we go. Yes, send. Successfully sent. Waiting for Augusto on Instagram. Almost there. Connecting.
Or on.
Yes. Stoked. Okay, I'm going to turn Augusto, you as well. You'll have to turn the volume down on your phone.
Okay, it's perfect.
All right,
Think
we are
that's
live
better?
to the world. Everybody, thank you for joining us. If there's any technical difficulties on Instagram, check us out on YouTube. And if the YouTube channel is mine, Surf Strength Coach. If there are technical difficulties on YouTube as well, go to Instagram. Cool. So Augusto, thanks, brother. Thanks for joining us today, man.
How are you, Chris? Thanks for the space, the opportunity. Stoked to be connecting with you.
Wicked. So for those of you that don't know Augusto, he teaches variations of breath work. I initially connected with him at Nihiwatu. That would have been like two, 3 years
2000,
ago.
2017, if I'm correct.
So for those of you that don't know Sumba, Island of Sumba, Nihiwatu, this resort there is insane. You've done a couple seasons over there now, and so doing a bunch of free diving, breath hold training, working with the guests, also getting to surf that left basically by yourself, huh?
Yeah, no complaints on that. It's just one of the pluses.
So that's Aki's left, right? Like I've
It,
surfed it that once when we were there and I did that work with you. Me and Fiona got it okay one afternoon. That's the only time I've ever surfed it. It's a bit tide fickle, yeah? Or does it kind of work mid, high, all of them?
no, it likes like, ideally if you have like mid tides, like it's ideal. A bit too high, you get a bit of too much backwash, and too
Yeah.
low, the reef gets exposed and closes out a little too fast.
Have you
But
done much other exploration around Sumba?
Uh, not as much as I wish. In
Yeah,
a way,
same.
like once at the hotel, sort of, we are basically confined to activities around, but
Yeah.
there's definitely some treasures to be discovered. That's for sure.
Man, Miller's right. Like I have missed it 2 or 3 different times now. Have just missed it by like 2 or 3 days, and it's one of those waves that I will get sooner or later, man. I will get it, but yeah.
No, same here. So far I've only shared the myth, the legend, but it's definitely a wave worth going for.
I hear that like from the guys that I've spoken to about it, like if you get it solid from out the back, you'll get like a solid kind of barrel section at times. I've heard it referred to as kind of like Nias-esque at times, not always. And then the rest of it is this just like super chill, perfect right hand point break where you just kind of whack the thing over and over.
Yeah, I think it has
So
different sections,
yeah.
and yeah, like you said, there's like a gnarly barrel, like world class, and sections to just be playful and enjoy
Right
different.
on. And so also with now you're currently in Bali. Prior to that, going back towards Sumba, you were doing. I've seen a lot of videos and footage of you doing a lot of free diving there. So a lot of spear fishing, a lot of free diving. Um,
Yes.
is that what got
So
you into this whole breath arena?
yes, basically as a kid, I was one of these kids obsessed with touching the bottom of every pool you jumped into, or seeing
Mm,
how many laps you could cover. And so I think naturally, growing up in Peru, where there's a pretty active ocean, found myself bodyboarding initially, learning to fish, spearfish. Eventually got into surfing. My spearfishing got a bit more serious. Then I got obsessed with big wave surfing. And back home we have this break south of the city, which is like a solid big wave. And so basically from my late teens to my mid 20s, I was just playing in this playground, you know,
mm,
and all very self-taught or with friends. But it wasn't until the year, or basically when I was entered my late 20s, 30s, that I was tour guiding in Thailand, that I bumped into a freediving school. So coming from this very strong oceanic background in surf, big wave surf, spear fishing. Suddenly I bump into this school that tells me, hey, we can teach you to dive down to 20 meters on the
Yeah.
first course. And at the end of the second, if you're good, you'll be able to dive down to 40 meters. And I'm like, what the hell? I need to learn this stuff, you know? So as soon as I could, I had my holidays. I went off. I committed to spending time with these guys. It was the school Apnea Total in Thailand, Koh Tao, and I stayed with them for a few weeks. And literally everything I knew underwater, like all my limits, like went 3 times further. You know, depth, length of breath holds, and it really opened my eyes. You know. So when some friends took notice of this, they are seeing what I'm doing back in Peru. Every time I rock back home, they're like, "Dude, teach us about breath holding. We want to learn."
Mm.
And initially it was a little tricky because they were all surfers, and I had learned all these things from freedivers. You know, and as you know, freediving happens in very flat waters, very tranquil waters. So I was always a bit careful of, my God, what can I share that it'll be useful and effective for a surfer, knowing
Yeah.
how heavy, uncertain, difficult situations in the ocean can get as a surfer. So this got my mind spinning until a few years later, I came up with my first sort of surf survival course. And I received great feedback. People were getting results that they could apply straight away in the sessions. Every time I went for a surf and bumped into students, I'll say, hey, are you practicing this? Are you trying this out? And all of them were coming back to me with positive comments, you know. So it was a good encouragement to keep on pursuing this path and polishing my skills, not to help others.
Yeah, it's cool, the natural evolution of you just doing it naturally, spearfishing, big wave surfing kind of thing, and then getting the formal instruction. But then bringing both worlds together, I think like most of us as surfers, a lot of us have done a free diving course or a breath hold course. And some people I think have a hard time distilling or pulling from freediving courses what to apply to what we do as surfers and the environment, because it's different, right? A lot of freediving, spearfishing, calm, you can get really centered, you can take all the time you need. There's not always necessarily the unpredictability or the intensity of what we
Yes,
kind of come across
and,
as
and,
surfers.
and, and it's so interesting you say this because, as you also know, sometimes during the year I give out instructor courses. So I train people on how to teach surf survival. And on occasions, I get freediving instructors that want to learn. You know, they are not surfers, they are freedivers, freediver
Yeah.
instructors, very experienced, and they come on a course to learn how to address a surfing crowd. And on 2 occasions, I've had people that decide not to continue with the course because they are, Augusto, you're not teaching me anything new. So I mean, I don't have any. I mean, I don't need to prove anything. I'm like, no, dude, you make your decision, you know.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is like a breath holding course for surfers won't have new science, new, let's say, knowledge in terms of science, fundamentals versus a freediving course.
Right.
The difference is how to make that bridge, which is when I'm teaching an instructor course to a freediver instructor, for example, I am helping this person connect with a surfer crowd.
Yeah.
Because in a way, you need to translate the knowledge so a surfer understands how to apply it effectively in real life surfing scenarios. No?
Well, it's a different context. Again, the environment's different. And so, you know, I could go take a free dive course and know how to extrapolate things, but not all free divers know necessarily how to teach that for surfing and vice versa. So yeah, no,
Exactly.
like I've taken your course, and again, I've worked with you at Nihiwatu. I think you've done a really good job at taking the relevant aspects of the science and the teachings of the freedive world and put it into the context of what we need to implement and utilize as surfers. I'm going to take a quick pause. For those of you on YouTube, you're saying Augusto has no sound. I have no idea what to do. Go to Instagram. Like I hear you fine. So Instagram, let us know if the audio is all good. And for those on YouTube, sorry, again, like I'm nearing 38. It's incredible I made this live thing even happen with my tech skills. So, so all good. To shift gears just a little, I want to hear from you because I am often asked about this, and this is a point that I often have to talk about on our coaching trips. And most surfers either have experienced this or will experience this. So from you, what is one near-death experience or close to in terms of drowning
Oh
that
my God.
was,
Okay.
what was, give us the catalyst, man. What was the like, this is fucking it? Because we've all been there. Like,
Okay, it's not a nice memory, and it traumatized me for a while, I must say.
but that's a good
Uh,
point, man, because, you know, honestly, you say it was traumatizing for a while, because mine was. It took me months to get over it. And I've even had clients where I've recommended them to go see a sports psychologist to deal with essentially their PTSD from this
yes,
near-death drowning experience. So
yes.
yeah, hit us with it, man. Give us
Okay,
your,
so
give us
I'll
the
give you
story.
I'll give you my story, and then I'll finish with a great recommendation to de-traumatize yourself. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So this was what I mean. This was 20 years ago. Now I'm 42. I was in maybe 2021. I was trying to surf every swell at this big wave spot back home called Pico Alto. And the thing about Pico Alto and winter swells in Lima is that normally big winter swells come always with mist. So if you are unlucky, you arrive to the day of the swell, and the whole ocean is covered by mist. And this is a wave that breaks 1 to 2 kilometers out in open ocean. So if you are on the lineup, you do need landmarks, big landmarks like buildings, electrical posts,
Yeah,
hills,
yeah.
to put yourself in the right takeoff zone. So we were waiting, like the anxiety, you don't want to be out there, like you're like wondering what's behind the mist. And at one point, the mist cleared out, and I was like, okay, this is it, this is the window, boom. And of course, from that moment, you start to paddle in. Takes you like 30, 40 minutes, and from the moment you leave your car to actually be on the spot. There were like a couple of towing partners. I rocked up in my gun on like a 9.4 back then, and suddenly I'm like on the spot. The mist comes, and I lost my positioning, and so what happened was I got caught by a set. The first set that came caught me. I had this big foam like right in front of me. It got me and it broke my board, but it left me with maybe 2 feet of board of the gun, not like the heaviest part of the gun that has the fins and just
Yeah.
a little bit of flotation. And I had a leash. Back then it was, I think, like a 12-foot leash. So the turbulence in the first wipeout was holding this piece of board underwater. And of course, I am initially wiping out, but then when it's time to start swimming back up, I start to swim and swim and swim and swim, and I was getting anywhere. And I wasn't aware that my board was anchoring me underwater, and the turbulence was holding it down. It wasn't floating. So I couldn't like climb my leash. It was just, I was being held down by my board. Anyway, I finally made it up, tired as hell, and I looked behind me, and the second foam was a meter behind me. I was knackered, and the second one was like right there. I was like, oh no. I went on the second wipeout. I came out of this second one like super tired, but this time my foam was floating. So I had to decide. I was in open ocean. Back then there were no flotation devices, and I could easily take my leash out, but it was the last floating piece I had with me. So I'm like, dude, what do I do? And I started to think, and I decided to stay with a piece of foam. So I pulled my leash quickly. I held onto the piece of foam. It had all these like fibers and piece of wood sticking out I could cut with, but I didn't care, man. I just wanted to float quickly. And I took the third on the head. I came out of the third one. I said, okay, one more, and this is it. And I got 4, 5, and I think even 6 on the head. Luckily, by now I'm being dragged out of the big hot spot, so the foams are getting a bit smaller. And luckily by then, when I'm thinking I'm like just like almost out, the one of the jet skis sees me and sees my face and, oh, this dude needs help right now. So they came pick me up and took me to the beach. So that was my experience. And the point is, I swear to you, after the third one, I said one more, and this is it. And
Yeah,
my
yeah,
body could cope with at least 2, if not 3 more waves.
yeah.
So the body and mind is a lot more resilient than we think we are. That's the moral of the story.
I had a
So hold
terrible
tight, hold tight,
shittying experience.
hold tight.
So before So with that, I'm gonna interrupt you. We're gonna go back to that in a minute.
Okay.
See if on your Zoom you can hit unmute on Zoom, and that might then I muted you for a second. Let's unmute it and see if it goes back to
Yes.
YouTube. Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go back to it. Basically, took you needing to get to the point of this is it. This is fucking it. I'm dying. To then feel that yes, there is a capacity for a lot more. Durability is not the right word, but essentially the realization of suddenly you could push past that point. So essentially what you got to deal with was your mental barrier, and that then the reality of that you're able to push past those mental barriers.
Exactly. So, but of course, if you think about it, this experience happened 20 years ago, and I still remember vividly. You know.
Yeah. And
However,
it's
it was
imprinted. That is in like the deep emotional centers of your brain. Like there is no there's no
exactly.
forgetting that. Like,
You know.
yeah.
However, those type of moments are so brief and so intense for a surfer that they don't really offer much of a learning experience. You know, it's too hard to actually pick up knowledge from that. You know, you might remember things later, but it is not the easiest or the most convenient place to build skills to deal with such scenarios in the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the environment to build a skill when you're trying just not to die.
Pretty much. That's where the environment where you want to apply things you already possess. You know?
And I think that goes to a really valid point that most surfers, it's a lot more aware now. Like people are into it. They're about more switched on getting into breath work. But most surfers, they start wanting to expand their abilities in terms of size and intensity of wave. And they don't necessarily really get into breath training until they finally have that near-death experience. They finally, for most, like, again, I've worked with a lot of clients, man, and most of them, they're only like, oh, I kind of want to do breath work now because I got the shit beat out of me like so-and-so ago. Like there's usually this kind of catalyst all of a sudden of, okay,
yeah.
I need to start like putting some effort towards this to start, you know, dealing with
yes.
what will inevitably come.
And something to complement what you just said is that sometimes breathwork can be a bit like results from breathwork, especially at first, can be a bit elusive, very hard to feel, to touch. Different to, okay, you go to the gym, you put in a few push-ups or whatever, and then you'll see your muscles like pumped up, okay, I'm going to come back tomorrow. Right. While with breathwork, initially you are like, oh, I'm not even sure if I'm doing it right. Or I'm not even sure if I am progressing, or I don't feel any progress. And so it's quite easy to get like to lose motivation at first. But a great recommendation is be aware that if you put in the time to breath work, you're not only going to work on your mental and physical resiliency.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, the toughest training sessions of my life, and I've also am a health and fitness coach. I do like kettlebell sprints. I know what tough means, but I kid you not, some of the toughest sessions in my life last 10 minutes or less, and they are breathe and breath hold sessions I do lying in bed.
I 100% agree with you. I 100% agree with
you. So like,
it's a different type of feeling. It's a different type of shit, right? Like you can go do kettlebell swings so you go full lactic acid burn, right? It hurts to where you can't even walk, but it's different from a breath hold where everything in deep brainstem survival mechanism in your entire physiology is screaming at you to breathe now, to breathe now, to breathe now. It's a very different type of uncomfortable physical sensation and mental that nobody's ever touched until they either do breath training or they almost drown.
Yeah, basically that. But breath hold training offers you the opportunity to learn, start to practice, interact, to flirt with these skills in the safety of your home, in the safety of the pool with your training buddies.
Yeah.
So, and if slowly you're going to start picking up information, acquiring knowledge, developing actual physical results. And when you start to make that bridge, connecting what you're learning in these sessions and apply it, not in the day that you almost drowned, but you apply it in the tiny little session like playful. You can start to work on these skills. Then you take it to a slightly bigger day, then to a slightly bigger day. Before you know it, you're equipped with all these super effective, efficient tools you are applying not only in certain scenarios, but in many aspects of life. So breathing breath hold training offers a great depth into the mind game and how to use it smartly when we actually need to deal with difficult scenarios in and out of the water.
Mm-hmm. I think you bring up a really good point that it's breath training. Again, people will come to it initially, I think, just with the focus of hold down or like just with Wim Hof intensity. I'm going to bring up Wim Hof in a minute. But if people start getting into breath training, it will have a pervasive benefit into all other aspects, whether it's the small things of like knowing how to recover breathing or maintain breathing and calm during a training session, or then noticing, you know, you're getting into an argument or some type of stress event and you notice a changing in breathing pattern, a changing in heart rate, and then being able to deal with those things more effectively from a physiologic perspective, to being able to stay calm in really intense situations, whether that be a hold down or some other kind of life scenario. I think that's the biggest thing that I want people to truly understand, is that the breath training, whatever the entrance point it is, whether it's hold down training, or I want to surf bigger waves, or I want to, whatever it is, whatever brings them there, if they do start implementing it, it is going to have a pretty profound potential reach to the rest of their life and output and their systems, essentially.
So I think a good way is to, sometimes it's hard to speak about what I teach or put it shortly, but a phrase that I think can be very easily understood is survival apnea is an education system that uses breathing and breath holding exercises as tools to develop self-awareness, self-control, and forge body and mind resilience. So basically,
that's the elevator pitch, bro. That was it. You just, you just nailed it. And actually, Augusto and I are doing this now because his program is available in my app now. So if you go to the most recent Instagram post of mine, Augusto is offering 25% off the course. Codes and everything are there. Link in my bio to go check out the program. It's legit. I have done this course with Augusto before. It is really good. So with me interrupting you now, please go on. Continue that elevator spiel.
So for example, when you are engaging in this program, this program, you're actually walking into a space where you're going to do exercises that are going to force you, is not the right word, but give you the opportunity to pay more attention to how you think, what you feel, how you react to those feelings when you are under pressure. You're going to start working on that, fine-tuning how you decide to react to those sensations, those thoughts, and how to start choosing how to think, how to react to feelings, so that you have a better, a higher chance of a positive outcome.
Yeah.
So a lot of our training sessions are about that. It's helping you to enter these sort of moments of and discomfort, but with homework. I don't just want you to suffer to feel discomfort. I want you to enter spaces of discomfort, initially mild, then moderate, then intense, but with a mission at hand. You need to pay attention to what you think, what you're feeling, how you're reacting to those feelings, and what you can do to stay calm and focused, even in the presence of strong, intense physical discomfort.
Okay? I think it's brilliant, and it's kind of alluding to what you first taught to me is the breath hold journey. And for everybody, the breath hold journey, it's one of the theory lessons within his program. I found that when I teach that now on our surf coaching trips, that alone. So I will have people do a breath hold, full breath hold. Just sit here, hold your breath as long as you can. We time it. I then just give them the talk about the breath hold journey, and we go back into breath holds, and they'll all like 30, 50, 80% increase in time just from that awareness. And so I think that's what you alluded to just prior to that is super important for people that are trying to start doing this breath development practice for their surfing and hold downs, whatever that might be, that it's often they need to start experiencing the physical and mental discomfort in a safe environment. That's what this breath hold training is, because you have to experience it in a calm environment just to start. What I tell people, you need to start building familiarity and an understanding with what you are inevitably going to feel in an intensity situation. That way you have an awareness of it already. You can make better choices. You can stay calm in that scenario. I think that's one of the biggest strengths of breath training, is that it's this exposure, so that one time they have a long breath hold or a long hold down, they're not feeling all this shit for the first time and freaking out. There's an experience behind it, an understanding behind it.
Exactly. And to build up onto what you just said, Chris, is don't think about breathwork, breathhold training as I am only will apply this the day that I almost don't make it. You know? See it also as a way in which you're going to acquire new skills that will allow you to build ocean confidence, enjoy every single surf session more, because suddenly you're going to enter the ocean, but your sensory system is different. You know, you're paying more attention to sounds, to sensations, to what comes through the eyes. Every time you're held under, even if it's a mini wipeout or a duck dive, you're going to pay attention to what's going on outside and inside you. So a surf session becomes a lot richer. For example, a scenario that is not life or death, but how these skills are put in practice. Let's say you're surfing a moderately demanding wave, you know, and suddenly, you don't make the first one, or you get caught on the inside, and suddenly, like, the set comes, you know, and rather than, rushing into, like, burning all your resources and getting breathless unnecessarily, you decide, you know what, I'm going to switch gears and start paddling a bit slower, keep my breath rate a little bit slower, because anyway, I'm going to be hit by a number of waves. So initially, you are consciously deciding to shift gears. I'm into chill out mode, conservation mode.
Yep.
Okay, first wave comes, you duck dive, maybe it's going to shake you, you're going to grab your board hard, strong, so you can float quicker. You come up, you breathe, you recover, and you notice more waves coming, and you're still in this hibernation state. You know, it's like one of the applications, for example. You know, so not only see it as life or death, but also a big a bigger repertoire of tools to apply in different types of scenarios.
That's it, man. It's the tools. It's the efficiency, right? It's knowing how to shift gears, knowing your own levels of intensity, knowing, again, feeling these higher intensities of exertion. So, like, I surfed by myself today. There's a solid, like, beach break down the way. And it was solid today, 5-6 foot, but like shitty beach break, heaps of paddling, big rip. I went out, caught 2 waves, ate shit, and came in. It's like, I'm done. It's exhausting. But but that whole time, like, I'm doing exactly what you say. And I think I take for granted that a lot of people don't do this. And you might as well. Like, as I'm paddling out, I'm looking at sets, I'm increasing paddle intensity or backing it off. I'm checking in with my breath, recalibrating my breath rate to try to slow down, doing some things. If I see a set out the back, I'm doing some things that might start prepping me gas-wise, O2, CO2-wise, for like some heavy duck dives. And then even after all of that, with this heavy-ass rip, like, just ate shit twice. I'm like, you know what? This scenario is just not favorable for positive outcomes. And so I'm just like, fuck it, I'm going in. But yeah, no, it is, again, if people start getting into this breath work, it's a foundation, breath work of any sort. It's this foundation for what we're trying to do with our bodies, and it's activities and expanding comfort zones and pushing things and kind of pushing boundaries. And again, if you can start tapping into your own physiology and be more aware of your own physiology and reactions, it's only going to create beneficial outcomes.
Absolutely.
Because everybody's going to ask, and I already told you I was going to ask, Wim Hof protocols. So I'm not asking you to dog Wim Hof. I use some Wim Hof protocols. I alter some of his protocols. But you being a breath coach, I'm sure you see a lot of things that people are either misusing or misunderstanding about the Wim Hof protocol. Or are there a couple 2 points that you just would like people to be more aware of about Wim Hof and how they're using it or why they're implementing it? Is there anything off the top of your head that kind of strikes you as, I want people to know this about?
Yeah, people. Okay, so first of all, you should know that a human being at rest, a healthy human being at rest, is almost saturated with oxygen all the time. Okay, you put a pulse oximeter, and if you are an averagely healthy human being, you are loaded with oxygen. You know, 97 to 99% on average. Yeah. For this oxygen to be usable by the body, effectively used by the body, your body needs a certain amount of carbon dioxide. No, because it puts the blood in the ideal pH. Okay? So as a human being, for the day-to-day, you want your brain to be very silent, very calm through the nose. Okay, that is a starting point. Now, from a surfer standpoint, low oxygen scenarios are extremely rare, because if you think about it, for the amount of surfers, people wiping out, if low oxygen was a reality for most surfers, there'll be a lot of blackouts. But that's not the case. When someone passes out, has a blackout in the ocean, most of the time, it's due to a trauma. They hit something very hard. Okay, so let's say to train surfers with, let's say low oxygen, to guide their training into expose them to low oxygen, it'll be beneficial. But for me, much more important is teach surfers how to deal with extreme levels of discomfort. Yes. And for that, I need breathing protocols, breathing exercises that accumulate carbon dioxide. Okay? So for example, if you want to get stronger doing deadlifts or kettlebell swings, every once in a while you need to put on more weight, right? Mm-hmm. And when you lift that barbell and it's loaded, or you start those swings or snatches or whatever with a heavier bell, the level of tension your body needs to generate is a lot higher, okay? So think of carbon dioxide as weights. If you want your session to be more effective for you as a surfer, you need those weights. You need carbon dioxide to start going higher, 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 higher. You will like red smoke coming out of your ears of carbon dioxide. That's the training that is going to make you tougher. Any breathing protocol that makes you get rid of carbon dioxide to flush it out before a breath hold, it's like taking those weights out. So maybe you can lift that barbell 100 times, but hey, there's no weights. So if you end up hyperventilating and scoring a 5-minute breath hold after it,
it doesn't make a difference. There's no relevance to it.
There's no relevance to it because you've been lifting that barbell without any weights.
Yeah.
Why?
That's so good, man. Honestly, this is like the best metaphor analogy I have heard. So keep going, keep running with it. It's good. So
if you were looking for a nice bath, it's not gonna come, doing deadlift.
Dude, I'm so stoked that you hit this because, man, I can't tell you, like, whenever I put up a post about breathwork or Wim Hof, somebody's like, oh, I'm doing this for breath holds. I'm like, man, I ain't gonna do a fucking thing for your breath hold training at all. Because people don't understand the physiology of blood gases and what is actually happening with the Wim Hof protocol. Yeah, no, that's keep spitballing if you want me. That was really good.
So some if you use the right breath hold protocols, I mean, you suddenly forget about aiming to hold a breath as long as you can. It's about, okay, how do I find an effective way to create carbon dioxide, accumulate it, keep it high, and start my training starts in that zone. I need to enter that zone. Otherwise, you're lifting the barbell without any weights, if that makes sense. So, of course, initially in my training programs, for example, I cannot make you lift a barrel that's too heavy. I'm going to break you. In this case, I'm not going to break you physically. I could break you mentally. Right. If I expose you to breath holds with too much CO2 that gets triggered too fast, the exercise is going to break you. You won't be able to learn much from the experience. But I do make a point in my training programs of teaching you how to build, let's say, friendly carbon dioxide levels at first. So you can start teasing with them, developing the mental tools to deal with them. And slowly, as there is progression, both physiologically and mentally, your body gets tougher, your mind gets smarter, then I start putting off those weights on. And finally you're starting to become a human that has the mind game to work through that stress, but also the physiology that will help you keep that pH on check, when the CO2 starts rising inside.
I think that's a really valuable point, that the mental fortitude and kind of durability in a sense. So, for example, Fiona, my partner, was asking me the other day, she's like, you did a breath hold for like 4 minutes or something. I was like, yeah, it fucking sucked. After 2 minutes, it was terrible. And but even I think you, at the beginning of the course, you had made a point that there's some female that I think she holds some records, and you had pointed out that I believe she makes a statement that, like, her breath hold after like 1 minute or 1.5 minutes is just terrible. Like, and she goes for minutes longer, but it is, again, this just mental fortitude and being able to withstand that and have the understanding of the physical responses, but then also implementing protocols like you do with pool work and some of the tables, that you are actually creating a metabolic and cellular change for CO2 tolerance and capacity to deal with that.
Exactly. It goes from both sides. No, you could be someone with a body that is ready, but the mind that is not ready. And if you expose that mind to too intense of a discomfort too soon, you can break it. You'll traumatize it.
Yeah.
Or you could be the other way around. Maybe you are a bit unfit, but you have a strong background of whatever discipline that you used to play as a kid or whatever. And maybe you have a very tough mind. That has been a bit dormant for a while. And suddenly you enter one of these courses and you realize, hey, dude, I can hold my breath for a very long time. How come? I've been smoking for years or drinking. Or, oh, maybe you have a strength there that has been dormant and you suddenly reawakened it. And you can use that strength to pull your body out from wherever it is.
We, on our last Macaronis trip, so I was running the guys through some breath stuff, and there was one fellow there, his name will come to me, but very unassuming looking guy, super nice dude, but wasn't necessarily like, he wasn't a gym junkie by any means, you know, like, and so we're going through breath hold stuff, and after it was, we did a breath hold, I think he got like a minute and a half, did the just the discussion about the breath hold journey. And so again, for those of you, those of you who are watching, if you want to start getting into breath hold work, check out Augusto's course, now available in my app. So click on the link in my bio, check it out. Just going through this breath hold discussion with him, he went to like a 4.5 minute breath hold. It was intense. And so it was everybody around was just like, what the hell? How is this kid even doing this? Is he passed out yet? So finally he comes out of it. It was well over 4 minutes. And I asked him, I'm like, what do you do breath work? And he's like, no, I just meditate. And I was like, that's it. You have the previous mental capacity of being able to pull back and observe and stay calm in kind of an intensity of scenario. So yeah, it's so much of it is mental, and then doing some protocols to actually push your physiology to start adapting.
Yeah, and now that you threw out the word meditation, I'm going to complement a little bit. That as part of the course, also there is a practice called the concentration of attention. Mm-hmm. And this is in a way like whenever we talk of the word meditation, see it more as a word of self-connection or grounding, you know. So a lot of meditation practice sometimes cannot be seen as applicable in real life scenarios because they involve being lying down or sitting up with eyes closed, in a way disconnecting yourself from the surrounding environment. Maybe you are connecting with yourself, but you are disconnecting from the surrounding environment. So of course you cannot apply this skill, this mental state, in a surf scenario, no? Because suddenly you need to be reactive to the situation. But there are ways in which you can enter a similar or same meditation mental state, but still remain ready for action. You know, so the exercise called the concentration of attention basically provides you with some tools to start playing with this skill. Now it basically translates in using your senses to connect to the moment. Now you start
being
to feel,
present
rather than seeing a huge set and freaking out and making this horror story in your head, you decide to feel the water. Or you're in a gnarly wipeout, and rather than, oh my God, this is it, you go, hey, I'm gonna feel the turbulence. You know, yeah. Pretty powerful today. And when it starts to dissipate, oh, now it's time to start swimming up. So you can start to connect to the moment really connect to the moment, avoid that mental chatter, and immediately you're going to see some positive outcomes or better decision making when things get tough. You know?
It's the ability to remain present. And if you're able to remain present and calm, you can make better choices, and no matter the scenario. That immediately goes back to a big thing we hit on our coaching trips is the psychology and basically neurology behind skill development. So when we're working with surfers trying to step up, you know, we're essentially having to teach them new patterns. And so in a surf scenario, you are suddenly faced with an environment that is extremely variable. Suddenly people are seeing reef for the first time. So they're having all of this potentially negative information, fear-based information for them that will halt any type of actual skill progression. Like if I ask you to do something different with your pop-up and you're paddling into a wave and all you're freaking out about is skinning your face off on the reef, you're not going to change your pop-up. So it's one thing we really talk about is to start trying to get present. It doesn't need to be meditative, but you need to start getting present and start being able to slow the chatter just to start being able to make more of a cognitive process rather than fear jerk reactions, instinctual stuff, which if you go into like a hold down scenario, if somebody's getting pounded and they have no previous experience or breath training, their immediate reaction is going to be flailing to the surface as hard and fast as they can. When we both know that's the immediately wrong thing to do. You need to go chill, you need to go calm, you need to reserve your oxygen and just wait for the environment to change so you can comfortably come to the surface, and then start using protocols like you teach for, you know, proper gas exchange when you get back to the surface, expel as much CO2, as much oxygen back in, kind of thing.
Yeah. So so good advice for people in general is where you are being exposed to challenging scenarios, where it's breath holding. Like I told you, very important to progress slowly. Same for surf scenario. You know, if you're entering into a session that is already a bit overwhelming as it is, sometimes entering the session with too high expectations for you, in a way, puts a bit too much weight on your shoulders. You know.
Yes.
So, good advice I give for this is, what is a realistic goal for you to keep this experience enjoyable? So, for example, when a friend was going to come to surf this big spot back home, I would tell him, "Hey, bro, we'll paddle out together, but don't put that pressure that you need to go and catch a wave. No, you're going to come in, you're going to sit in the channel and watch the waves. That's today your mission, you know. And if after a few sets you realize, you know what, I want to be in the takeoff zone just to be there without the mission of catching a wave. Okay, I'm going to make that jump. So in a way, you're giving yourself time for your body, your psychology, your subconscious to start absorbing information from the environment. And what today felt, or in the morning felt a little too much, and in the afternoon it's like, hey, you know what? I am actually comfortable. I can actually think of stepping up somehow, you know? So
it's that
progressive, playful exposure is
that's
key.
it. Playful exposure, man. We call it graded exposure on the trips. Like it's doing it in a progressive way, in a progressive manner that lets them feel ultimately safe. Because if they can feel safer and calmer and start putting fun, actual fun, a positive emotion onto the scenario rather than anxiety and anticipation and self-pressure, like they're already starting behind the eight ball with that type of shit. It's a wrong mental space to go into a scenario of trying to push boundaries or go after new things. It needs to be that graded process where the emotions are in the positive frame of mind. I'm gonna, since our YouTube was weird, and I don't know if audio's on there yet, and we'll probably only have about 15 minutes here left on Instagram, I'm gonna pose it to any of you watching. Go ahead and type some questions. If you have any questions for Augusto, and we'll get to those, and we're gonna continue chatting, but I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions in there. I did have a question from a client that people are time poor, or they think they're time poor, but really they're kind of intention or lacking focus. But if somebody starts getting into breath protocols and training, what is a realistic time frame or expectation of time per week? If somebody does want to see some positivities or positive effects, how often they need to go do those breath training deadlifts per week to start seeing some influence?
So, for example, if you are someone that has already a little bit of an active life, let's say you surf 2 or 3 times a week, maybe play some sports, I would say, so you're already being exposed to breathless moments, you know, where CO2 levels are rising. I would say that for the first 1 or 2 months, doing 10 to 15 minutes, 5 days a week, let's say in the mornings, of just like breathing exercises that don't need to be too challenging, just to get familiar with mild levels of discomfort, complemented with maybe one moderate to intense breath hold training session a week.
Yeah.
within those 5 days, no more than
Yeah.
5 days. So you're talking of 4 sessions that are going to be 15 minutes and maybe one that is going to be 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, that over a period of 4 to 6 weeks will give you results for sure.
For sure. I mean, again, people need to consider the need of adaptation from like the cellular kind of not metabolism, but the cellular response and our ability to change tolerance for CO2. And then again, I think the mental impacts, even after the course, just the course that I've done with you in the past, like even just that course, that type of confidence and comfort of knowing what to do and how to do and in a skillful manner, I think that pays dividends as well. And then, yeah, people will see the benefit from some actual implementation of the practices.
And something to add to whenever I get asked this question, Augusto, what's the ideal training program? You know, because
yeah.
My answer will always be the ideal training program is the one that you can stick to, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The one that you can follow, because change, evolution, adaptations take time, and positive things in life don't come for free. You know? So you do need to put in the time. So if, for example, if your ideal training program that fits in your life doesn't give you results, you need to do it a little more often, or you need to do it with a little more awareness or a little more intensity. So those are simple guidelines. If your ideal training program suddenly starts to make you feel a bit anxious because it doesn't fit in your week, suddenly a week feels a little overwhelming and, oh my God, I won't be able to fit in my sessions, already that's a signal that you want to make that training program a bit less often. And the ideal sort of frequency intensity for you is one that at the beginning of every week, you say, you know what, okay, it's Monday, it's Tuesday, it's Thursday, it's Friday, and maybe if I squeeze it on Saturday, I'll do it, but if not, no stress. Okay, right there, you have a good balance, and it's measured by yourself. Your own psychology is telling you whether you're asking yourself for too much or you are slacking a little, you know?
I think that's a good point. The ability to self-regulate with anything, whether it be through breath training, nutrition, training in general, life, relationships, is being able to reflect about something needing to change. And like you point out, people could be doing too much or not enough. And if there is a specific intent, so if I was to come to you and like, dude, I want to go start surfing 12 to 20 foot ulus, it's going to take some training. So I'm going to need to start doing specific intensities and volumes that might not be normal, or normal's not the right word. I might need to train really intensely for 2 months to make those physiologic adaptations. And then beyond that, I can taper that stuff off and probably hit more of a maintenance. But I think people just need to understand there needs to be times of higher intensities and volumes if there is a specific goal at hand. If not, you can kind of back things off here and there.
If the intensity challenge is not present often enough, adaptations don't come. Because the only way your body and mind decide to invest in your evolution, because personal evolution, it means a lot of effort for the body. Body needs to develop new neural connections, new fibers, make the bones denser depending on what you're training. But transformation, self-transformation requires a lot of effort by the body. And the body is designed to survive. It has a very smart GM, you know, a GM that doesn't like to waste resources.
Yeah.
So if your body's GM doesn't feel that you actually need adaptations, doesn't feel you actually need a tougher head, a more resilient body, you can want all you want, but adaptations are not going to come. Mm-hmm. So it is a must that every once in a while, at least, you allow yourself to enter zones of moderate to intense discomfort, if, of course, it's of your interest to learn how to deal with them better, easier.
Yeah. I think it's a point I bring up to clients often, that speaking of the 35 and up group, which you and I, you're how old are you now, Augusto?
42.
Yeah, bro. Okay, so we're both like we're cruising. I think people need to really. I often tell people, look, 80% of your training, it's not necessarily comfortable, but it's not super intense. And generally speaking, only about 20% of training should be intensity, where we're trying, whether it be sprint work or lifting, whatever. And same for breath work. I think there needs to be those smart doses of when you are trying to push of physiology, forcing the body into some type of adaptation protocol, or adaptation response. I've got a question for you, man. This is actually a good one because I started Googling this a couple of weeks ago. AJ Schneller on YouTube. Oh, he deleted, he just, I watched him just delete his messages, but I'm going to ask anyways. As I was watching, they deleted.
Yeah.
Nutrition. Is there
Okay.
specific nutrition that can influence breath hold training? And now I went down a rabbit hole with this recently because I saw dudes selling a keto product in order to help breath holds. And I'm like, this is some bullshit. But for
That's
real,
my answer. That's my answer.
improve your breath hold. Get my keto product.
Okay.
But in Googling, I then came across some stuff where there's some research showing that perhaps a ketogenic diet lowers cell and mitochondrial need for oxygen, therefore potentially improving breath holds. There's actual some research out there behind this. Have you heard any? Run with it, man. Run with it, bro.
I mean, I'm quite primal, you know, and so to tell you the importance of self-connection, self-awareness, how far it goes.
Yeah.
If I was spear fishing, if I was in an early wipeout, if I was on a deep free dive, and I had a pulse oximeter measuring my oxygen levels at that moment, but on that moment when I need to be the most connected with myself because I am dealing with a freaking storm out there, if I distract myself to look at my screen, already my performance dropped.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is how focused someone needs to be to navigate through a storm when the going actually gets tough. You know? So for me, much more important than, let's say, trying to bring tools from the outside to help you get stronger, which is important. Mm-hmm. For me, much more important would be, you know what, I should eat food, a diet that I have easy access to.
Yes.
That most of it is natural. It's maybe made at home or eaten at a restaurant where they cook home-style meals. You don't want food to come from a package, a can, but rather buy food that has a shape it's meant to have in nature. And eat a lot of greens. And eat to a point of feeling comfortable, not completely full. So that's as far as my advice on diet goes.
Yeah.
I am sure that there'll be like little things that you can throw in that could enhance things a little bit more, but nothing will substitute long-term, like training with a long-term objective, done disciplined and with focus, with a clear intention of where you want to get. That is the key element. You know, you cannot expect for the magic pill that will give you the results without putting that hard work in. That's the honest answer.
The magic keto diet for breath hold training. And sell my stuff. That's what you need, bro. Stop selling your program in my app. Start selling keto supplements to improve your breath hold.
And there is a chance that it could help, you know. But the thing is, if you fill your kitchen full of these super things, suddenly you start to lose attention on the important things, you know.
Yeah.
Rather than putting money in these superfoods and stuff, I buy myself a good stopwatch, pen and paper, and I decide to train things that fit in my life and I can take with me on a weekly basis. And that's for me is a lot more important, you know. I won't be afraid that nasi goreng I eat later is going to screw up my results, you know. Like, I don't care, man, because the body's pretty resilient, man. Like humans, dude. In mind, as a species, we've been able to survive through years of sometimes the food wasn't there, you know, and we had to eat whatever and go and charge a lion, you know. So we are not that precious. The body will keep running, man.
AJ on YouTube, stoked, man. That was actually a really great question. I hope that answered it. And yeah, like I told the guys that was asking me this, I was like, look, a keto supplement should be like the last thing you are even remotely considering about improving a breath hold. Even nutrition, like there probably is some influence on cellular requirements for oxygen, utilizing carbohydrate and glucose, whatever. That's still so far downstream from things like somebody should actually be concerned about in the realm of improving breath holds that yeah, cool. You resonate with me on that one, man.
It'll just shift your attention of the actual where you need to have it.
You're in the middle of your apnea table for the day, really pushing it, and then you're just like, fuck, I forgot my keto salts before I did my breath hold training for the day.
Yeah, and that's it, you know, like finally you become very fragile, you know. That's
there
it.
goes the session, man.
Or or there's like the big swell coming, and rather than just wait for it and hold your ground, you're like, okay, ordering your superfoods or your supplements to like, otherwise you won't feel ready. So it can create like an element of fragility, like dependence on too much things from the outside.
Yeah.
Whilst we're not that fragile.
For those of you on Instagram, again, I think this is going to kick me off in a minute because it only lets this go an hour. So you can go check us out. We're going to keep chatting for a few more minutes on YouTube. For those of you, follow Augusto, Survival. He's tagged in my recent post, Survival Apnea, and also Augusto Vega, Augusto.Vegas, yeah? Something. I've tagged
Vegas.
you in the post, yeah.
Cool.
Check out his program. I'm speaking from personal experience. It's legit. He's done a wonderful job, and you are going to learn fundamentals of physiology and breath work up to practices in your pool. These are protocols I utilize personally and with clients. It is good. If you want to start getting into your breath training, this is a really good entrance point. Before people sign off on Instagram, and we're going to keep wrapping with this, do you have anything you want people to know about your program?
Like it's designed to be very simply understood and easily followed by anyone. I've made a point in making things simple, repetitive, progressive, not because I am lazy and I don't want to make things complicated things. It's because simplicity is something I consider very important to be able to stick, follow, and measure your progress over time. Plus, I am always there behind you. Like I'm at the other side of the screen. If at any point on your program you hit a wall and you are like, you don't feel progress, you're unsure of why, you can reach out to me or to me through Cris, and we are always here ready to answer your questions and clarify any doubts or maybe shift things a little so they fit your personal requirements better.
What you mentioned about simplicity is important. And the reason being, so again, you and I were talking about this before we started going live, that in this realm of social media now, there's so many voices speaking about health. There's so many voices speaking about breath and surf fitness and keto diets for breath holds or whatever, that it becomes a problem because of the needs and requirements of social media likes. Everybody's always trying to do something crazier or more intense or some new method and protocol, and people are confused, and that all those new methods and protocols, it's largely all just bullshit. And what I think you've done really well with your program is dialed it back to what has been solid and stable in the world of freediving, and it works because it's been around for so long, and the physiology behind it all, and taken all of that and just simplified it for your surfer. You want to work on breath holds, you want to work on breath training, this is what you need to do.
It's similar to like the kettlebells, for example. No, kettlebells come from Eastern Europe and are designed to be used in a certain way.
Yep.
No, and certain people's sizes need a certain weight of kettlebell for it to be an effective tool for that person. No, and if you stick to kettlebells and use them simply, like they are meant to be used, you have like one of the most powerful training tools at hand.
Mm-hmm.
But you take the kettlebell and you start to like try to complicate things and do things with it that is not meant to be, how it's not meant to be used. Eventually, you're going to be using the kettlebell, or in this case, the breathing protocol, but you're just adding things to make things more complicated without necessarily getting back for your investment, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just overcomplicating things for the sake of like newness and fancy and social media entertainment. It's the kettlebells is a perfect, like the little pink 4 kilo or 3 kilo kettlebells you can get. Like, I'll have women ask all the time, reach out, what kettlebell should I get? I'm like, probably like a 12 kilo or a 20. And they're like, what? Um, so 10 seconds on Instagram Live. Cool. Thank you guys. Check out Augusto. Check out the recent post. Get the coupon. Save some money. We're going to go to YouTube. Henry and you're asking a question